poor and the wretched. What cross do you think will torture the eyes in hell? Of a certainty, the first thing they will see are the horrendous forms of demons. To look upon a devil is so horrible that the experience is said to have cost some people their sanity and others their lives. St. Bernard, in commenting on the 19th Psalm, tells one of his monks who had been visited one night by a certain horrible figure. For the whole of the following day, this monk had almost completely lost his grip on his reason and never for a moment imagined himself to be safe. Finally, at a time when all the monks happened to be asleep, he gave such a shout that he woke them all up and utterly filled them with terror. Cassian, also in the Colossians, relates that among the ancient anchorites, the hermits, there existed at times such a tremendous dread of the devil, who was wont to appear to them in different but always horrible forms, that none would dwell alone, nor would they who shared a cell together dare to sleep all at the same time. While some slept, others kept waking vigils, and never did they refrain from the singing of psalms and hymns. If here in our world devils can claim for themselves such power over us, if we fear them here so mightily, what, I ask you, shall they do in their own territory, where they will fear neither exorcisms, nor holy water, nor the merits and prayers of the saints? If they thus prowl about here, where they are so mightily expelled, what shall they do in the place where they govern and rule? Suppose a man were to walk into a cemetery. If the mere suspicion of their presence should come upon him, it would be enough to make his hair stand on end and his voice stick in his throat. What disturbance shall come upon sinners when in that common cemetery of the damned they shall meet face to face with so many monsters, phantoms, and chimeras? Also, what a cross shall the eyes of the damned suffer when they see their wives, parents, and children in the same torments. Jesusphoto has left us an account of the destruction of Jerusalem. Alexander, son of Hyrcanus and captain of the Hebrews, when he wished to inflict the most atrocious penalties on a certain group of people, ordered that 80 prisoners should be crucified in the city square all at the same time. While they were yet alive, each of their wives and children were to be cruelly slain before their eyes. In this way the wretches would suffer not one, but many deaths, nor in this manner of punishment lacking in hell. Nor is this manner of punishment lacking in hell. There, with weighty grief, shall children see their parents, and parents their children, husbands their wives, and wives their husbands, yea, and all who have been the cause of another's sin, bearing them company in the tortures of hell. My dear people, I know that at this flourishing university, it was in Belgium, where the sermon was given, a great many young men, truly modest, quiet, studious, and religious young men, are being reared up and instructed. I am aware of this partly by what I have heard from others and partly by what I have observed myself. I greatly rejoice at this and give thanks to the common Lord of us all for it. But I am also sorely grieved at heart in hearing that amongst so many upright young men, there are those corrupters and corrupted who move among them, who encircle those who are simple of heart, and by their works entice them to drinking parties or to dances or to other incitements of lust. Woe unto you, foul man, imitator of the devil, pest of youth! Do you thus dare to be devious and to rob the state of so great a good? What shall you do when you see yourself in the company of those whom you have deceived, in those living combustions of flames? Oh, how often will you then say, perish the day I first saw you, first sought to address and deceive you. For by hurling you to the vice of drunkenness and to other crimes and scandals, I was hurling myself into these torments. He in turn shall reply to you, perish the day that first brought you to me as a thief and executioner of my soul. the day I first gave ear to your poisonous sermons. This shall be the duet, the symphony of these wretches. But this symphony now admonishes us to make the transition from eyes to ears. Ears which heretofore delighted in lewd songs, rejoiced at hearing infamy and detractions against neighbors. Listened slothfully for hours on end to hawkers in the public square, yet were wearied by a sermon lasting a mere hour in church. These same ears will hear in hell nothing but groans, bellowings, cryings, contumelies, blasphemies, and curses. For just as in the kingdom of the blessed, the divine praises and the sweetest alleluias are always sung, so in the dungeon of the damned, shoutings and blasphemies shall resound forever. These are the hymns which will resound forever, and will be sung to the tone of hammers and scourges. I recall reading Plutarch's Life of Sulla. One day that cruel dictator ordered 6,000 men to be assembled in a tight circle. At the same time, he gave orders that the Senate should be conveyed in a temple not far away. He then instructed soldiers that when he made his speech in the Senate, they were to slaughter these 6,000 men as quickly as possible. Thus, when Sulla the dictator began his address to the senator, the innumerable clatterings and clashings of striking swords were heard continually, sounds that were mixed with the shouts and groans of those who were being slain. The dictator admonished the senators to listen to the proceedings in the chamber and not to be curious or pay attention to what was going on outside. Nevertheless, all the senators were frightened and frantic and could scarcely concentrate on the address. From this we may conjecture what a symphony, what organs and harps we would hear if we were at once permitted us to place our ears at the doorway of hell, where not 6,000, but many more beyond compare cry, shout, and bellow forever, are slaughtered, scourged, and struck forever. What shall we say about the sense of smell? No bilge trough can be found so unclean, no sewer with so weighty a stench that it can compare with the lake of hell, into which all the filth of the whole world must be thrown. Saint Victor Africanus gives a description of the torments inflicted on the holy martyrs by the Arian Vandals. He confirms that one of the most atrocious of their pains was the stench of the dungeon. The saint so speaking regarding the 4,996 martyrs who were tortured together in the same dungeon. He reports that in the narrow confines of that dungeon, the confessors of Christ were thrown literally one on top of the other like ranks of locusts, or as we may more properly say, like precious grains of corn. In that congestion, none was allowed to place a place of retirement to see to the needs of nature. You don't go to the bathroom. Crushed by necessity, they left their dung and urine in the same place, so that the stench and horror surpassed all the variety of their punishments. The Vandals, after their race had been eclipsed by the Moors, were punished mightily by the Moors in their turn. They were publicly led into the same dungeon, and upon entering, sank up to their knees in a veritable whirlpool of mire. Thus the Vandals themselves saw the fulfillment of the prophecy of Jeremiah. They that were brought up in scarlet have embraced the dung. That's in Lamentations 4:5. My dear people, compare this punishment of the martyrs with the tortures of the damned. In the dungeon of the confessors of Christ, there were but few people. In the dungeon of hell, there shall be innumerable people. In the former, only the filth of human beings arouse the stench. In the latter, all the filth, dung, offal, foulness, and heavy stench of the whole world shall be gathered together. If then the stench of that earthly dungeon surpassed all manner of punishments, Who shall be able to bear the incomparably heavier and more horrible stench of hell? Who can read without horror of that novel kind of torment, whether it is true or fictitious, which the Latin poet described when he says, "Indeed, he joined dead bodies to living ones, linking hand to hand and mouth to mouth. Singular torment, he killed them slowly, and in grim embrace they flowed with slime and gore." What shall we say to this? That a living and healthy man should be bound to a lifeless cadaver? That a wretched man should waste away from breathing that foul stench, from worms and corrupt matter issuing from a corpse? That a living man should be slain by a dead one? Is not the mere hearing of such a thing to be shuddered at, let alone the witnessing of it? But if this manner of punishment seems to us harsh and monstrous, as truly it is, what shall we say of the stench of hell, which shall rise up from so many putrid bodies? But if the sense of smell suffers these things, shall the sense of taste, which is wont to be the cause of weightier and much more numerous crimes, be immune from punishment? My dear people, shall not drunkards and impure gluttons then know, and know truly for the first time, at what cost they have purchased those exquisite dishes and drinks, which here on earth they reckon to have been bought for a paltry price? Truly, that sense of taste will be tortured with incredible hunger and thirst. They who cannot now endure a 2-day fast, and reckon that they have not satisfied nature unless they drink to the point of intoxication and vomiting, shall then be tormented with such hunger and thirst that nothing more grievous can be thought of or contrived. Who would not be moved by the words of the rich man in the gospel? "Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water to cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame." That's Luke 16:24. What greater poverty can be thought of? What lesser thing could be sought by that rich man who at one time feasted sumptuously every day? Luke 16:19. He whom the most exquisite wine could not satisfy does not seek so much as a cupful of water, nor, what is more wondrous, does he beseech Lazarus to dip his whole hand in the water. He does not ask for so much as a moistened finger. He asks merely that Lazarus dip the uttermost tip of his finger in water. And even this is not granted him. These things are told to us that we may know that the sentence of excommunication and interdict passed by the Lord upon the damned is so universal that no one can offer the slightest counsel or help. Whithersoever the damned shall turn their eyes or stretch forth their hands, they shall know that all access to counsel or help has been closed to them. They who have fallen into the middle of the ocean constantly stretch forth their hands and feet, even as they suffocate and wrestle with death. Still they mate with nothing but water, which eludes all their endeavors and attempts to grasp. Even so shall they who have fallen into the uttermost sea of misery suffocate therein forevermore. They shall ask for every kind, yea, for the help of death itself, but in vain. For there is no one who can in any way bring them the slightest help. My dear people, are these things indeed true? Whence have we learned these things? Who told us these things? Did Homer tell us of them? Did Plato? Did Virgil? Truth itself has told us these things, the very wisdom of God, who cannot lie. Is there then faith in the world? Have men the use of reason? Can they form a judgment about anything? How is it that such torpor exists in the very people who have believed these things? We are so diligent in warding off other and lesser evils. Why is it that we take no forethought of how we may avoid the tortures of hell? The penalties which we have mentioned thus far are by no means the worst.